Hello, game two of the 1935 World Chess Championship between Max Euwe and Alexander Alekhine. Now, we went over the first game, and in that game, we discussed a little bit of the backstory and the possibility of the effect of alcohol consumption on Alekhine's part, uh, being having an effect on the outcome of this match. And I pretty much take the side and opinion that alcohol didn't really have too much to do with it, and that basically Alekhine just basically underestimated Euwe, and Euwe had improved dramatically over the uh, few years leading up to the match, and he basically caught Alexander off guard. I just want to give you one more statement in support of that from none other than former world champion Vladimir Kramnik. And I had read this interview, a portion of his interview on ChessBase, that Kramnik says the rumor was that he lost the title, speaking of Alekhine, because of his drinking habit, then gave up the booze and won in 1937, which actually has nothing to do with reality. So that's the basic narrative. That's what I heard when I had started playing chess years ago. Alekhine was getting too drunk, he lost his title, and then he came back and spanked Euwe in 37. So back to what Kramnik says here. First of all, Euwe had a positive score, 3 games to 1 in decisive games against Alekhine in the period between their match and rematch. This means that although Alekhine broke his drinking habit almost immediately after the match, Euwe kept on beating him. So, um, the return also saw an even contest. So in the next match, it was in the first match, excuse me, it was Alekhine who collapsed, while in the return, the same thing happened to Euwe, who lost several games in a row. Why did it happen? Well, Euwe might not have wanted to remain world champion. The title might have had a heavy psychological burden for him. Anyway, I think that it did not happen by pure chance. The return was not a piece of cake for Alekhine. This myth should be dispelled. So that is from none other than former world champion Vladimir Kramnik. And further on in the chess base article, um, it says that it is worth adding that part of the myth behind the belief that drink was to blame is the crushing score Alekhine inflicted on Euwe in the 1937 match, which he won by 15.5 to 9.5, which history sometimes forget is that up to game 20 of that match, Alekhine only led by 11 to 9. So that's pretty close. But for whatever reason, Euwe collapsed after that, and he lost 4 of the final 4 games. So that's why the score looks as if Alekhine just, he sobered up and he just crushed him. But as we know happens in chess, there's all type of reasons for these type of collapses. Sometimes players have a mental breakdown, or some type of other um, physical ailment. I'm reminded of the Karpov Kasparov match in 84, where Karpov's up 5-1, and his health starts breaking down, and he starts losing matches, um, frequently, and then they cancel the match. So Euwe had a collapse also, except the match wasn't canceled, and he wound up losing the title. So with that, we're gonna go on to game two here. Max Euwe has the white pieces. He's down 1 game to 0, and Alexander Alekhine has the black pieces. So d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, d5. So we have this grunfeld, queen b3 variation, d takes, queen takes. So we see black is willing to give white the powerful center. In exchange, white's queen is wandering around a little bit. So basically, the overall strategy for black is to play in a dynamic fashion, exploiting the time used by white, moving the queen out early, and black plays a dynamic game. Now, um, Euwe is the author of 2 great chess books. And I know a lot of you don't read, but maybe you can find it online, a PDF form or something like that. But um, And when I say don't read, I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean like people watch videos now and and learn using alternate methods. But a lot of people still read. But there's two great books written by Max Erver called The Middle Game. It's actually one book, but part one and part two, and it's called The Middle Game. And part one is on static features, and it just talks about the static elements of the game. For instance, pawn structure, right? Strong and weak squares, right? The placement of pieces, etc., etc. Part two is the dynamic side and talks about the value of the value of the pieces and certain situations on the board where exchange sacrifices. Those are dynamic elements where you can't just sit there and just count the material, right? So Black in this variation is trying to play more of like a dynamic game. So he may be down a pawn. He may take on a compromise a bad pawn structure, right? But he's gonna have a piece activity to compensate for it. So there's a fine balance between dynamic advantages, static advantages. Okay, so sometimes you can have a worse position statically, but your position is compensated by the activity of the pieces. All right, moving on. Bishop e6 by Alekhine. Again, notice how he's gaining time against the queen. Queen b5 check. Knight c6. And you can see Black's development already. Right? Black is ahead in development. The queen is out there. And of course, he would love for Alekhine would love for Erver to grab that pawn on b7. Right? If queen takes b7 attacking this knight, then the knight just plays d4. Right? And guess what? Black is already winning this game. Right? There's no legitimate way to stop knight to c2. Okay? So this is example of the dynamism. Okay, Black right has a worse pawn structure. And matter of fact, he's even down. I'm sorry, he's not down material here, but he has statically White would be better, right? If you just look at the pawn structure, but look at the activity of the Black pieces. Like I said, in this position, White is lost. So of course, not queen takes b7, but knight f3, defending the d pawn. Alekhine plays rook b8 here. He didn't even have to do that. I mean, if he didn't want to, he could have played bishop d7 here if he chose, right? And then following up with e6, but he decided to just play rook b8. And now knight e5. And this is why I mentioned bishop d7, because after knight e5, he has to do it anyway. So bishop d7, knight takes d7, queen takes d7. These trades are good for White in the position because again he's lost a little bit of time running around with the queen. So if he can stifle the dynamism of Black, this tends to be in his favor. So even going back here, like I said, after bishop d7, this already stops this idea of knight e5, and then there's like some discovery items, some discovery available against the queen. So the queen probably is better off moving, let's say b3 here. Right? Then you can have lines like queen b3, bishop g7, etc. e4. And the game could continue in that vein. So here after bishop d7 now, which is pretty much forced, knight takes d7. So White is able to exchange some pieces. It lessens Black's dynamic potential somewhat. d5, and now knight d4, and you can see Alekhine still playing in this way, right? He has to try to make use of this advantage in time, or it just dissipates. Queen d3, but Erver does a good job, mixing his defense and his counterattack. Queen d3, e5. Of course, Alekhine just doesn't want to waste time moving the knight back, so e5, of course. e3 from Erver, knight f5, and now e4. Knight comes back to d6. Knight d4, probably a little better, and it forces forces white to try to kick him out of there. But after bishop e3, then c5. Okay, and this is very committal, right? You keep the knight here, but you give this passed pawn here. You know, play can continue, say bishop e2, and then like b5, for example, pushing this majority on the queen side down the board. So b5 is the option with the idea of b4, of course, moving the knight away. Bishop g7, of course. So that was an option. Knight d6, and now as the pressure has been taken out, off white here, Euwe strikes with a excellent move f4, and now black has a decision to make. Now he can't really take here. If he plays takes f4, then just simply e5, right? And you can see what's going on here. If he tries to play queen e7, then just queen e2, and the game is pretty much over. So this forces queen e7, and these are the type of moves black doesn't really want to make. You remember I was saying black is trying to play in a dynamic fashion here. He doesn't want to have to make these moves where he's like defending now, okay, because he's giving up the center. So now it's like white has the center, and black doesn't really have any activity to show for it. So and I think this goes back to just Alekhine not playing bishop d7 earlier. So so of course black would love to take here. You know, he would love to be able to do that and destroy the white center, but unfortunately he's not able to do that. So after f4, he has to play queen e7. All right, and this gives white the time that he needs to be able to strengthen his center here. So bishop e3 is played. Even stronger for Euwe would have been just to take here. I mean, it seems counterintuitive, right? Because after all, he's bringing more pressure on the center. But after queen takes e5, bishop e3, the attack on the e pawn turns out to be fictive because of this rook right here. Okay, it's because the queen being on e5 and rook here. So for instance, knight f takes e4, you can already see bishop d4. All right. Then you say have queen e7. And you really can't take right now because you have to watch out for discovered checks. So knight takes e4. And now rook g8. Bishop f6. Queen takes. Knight here. Very strong move. And you can see if this pawn wasn't here, it'd be checkmate. So c6 is forced. D takes. Bishop b4 check. King to e2. Knight f6. And of course, the pawn saves the day. It's c7 check, king e7. And rook takes b8. In this same line, so bishop e3, and if he takes with the other knight, because that's a possibility, then just bishop d4. Right? And let's say if he tries the same thing, it just doesn't work because here you can see after queen e7, then just knight takes e4. Okay, and the rook is going to fall. So it matters which knight you take with there. Anyway, Euwe opted for bishop e3, and the game continued. Knight g4. Again, Alekhine is an aggressive attacking player, and he can't resist the temptation to play in a dynamic fashion. So again, here calls for a little more subtlety here with the move like knight d7. Of course, strong pointing this e5 square. So now, of course, if f takes e5, then just simply knight takes e5 with a great square for the knight. And of course, a strong grandmaster is not going to do that. So knight d7 is is what we need there in that position. A little more subtlety. So knight g4, this provokes bishop takes a7. So of course it's not like Alekhine didn't see it. Oh my God, I'm losing the pawn. No, he's trying to keep up that theme of dynamism in the position. So he's giving up the pawn, the open lines, and he's trying to make something happen here with activity, right? So h3, rook takes a7, h takes g4, and now he plays bishop g7. And now again, Euwe, although behind in development, he's able to find enough in the position to create threats and to keep Alekhine's attack at bay, because Alekhine has to respond. So in this case, he plays queen e3. It supports this pawn on f4 and attacks the rook. Okay. Another option for Euwe, right, and possibly a stronger option, is to keep the position closed right away with f5. All right, while he's behind in development. Now, the idea behind f5 here is, let's say, rook a5. Well, first, Black's idea is, of course, rook a5, and he wants to play. Black would like to play b5. All right, let's give Black an extra move, b5, and then b4, driving the knight away from the defense of e4. So knight d1, queen g5, bishop e2, right, as the pawn was attacked on g4, and castle, and then rook fa8, playing in a way, in a like style of like a Benko gambit, where you have these open files on the queen side, and really putting a lot of pressure on the position. Okay, so this is kind of like what Black wants to do. He wants to use his activity, all right, to force concessions out of white. So queen e3 kind of prevents Black from doing that right away. And what you see is a kind of transposition as far as the move order. So you see rook a5 first. So Euwe chooses the most forcing move order, which is interesting. So queen e3 first, and now rook a5, and then he plays f5. All right. So it's interesting psychologically that he chooses the forcing move order. So he attacks first, then he plays f5 instead of just going for f5 straight away. So f5, and now Alekhine plays bishop f6. All right, so he's trying to exploit the weakening of the dark squares here, as you can see. Euwe plays a4. Not really the strongest continuation, but he plays a4 here. And now bishop h4 check, g3, bishop g5. Again, there's this theme of Alekhine's with the activity. Right, and attacking the queen again. So you could see all the way from the opening when white played 4, queen b3, that the queen is constantly under some being harassed. White has to be very careful with the development of his pieces, etc., etc. But so far, Euwe is doing a good job, just kind of, doing just enough to keep Black at bay. Queen f3, castles, b4, rook a8, rook to a2, knight e8 from Alekhine, and he's just gonna, reposition that knight on f6, rook b2, knight f6. All right, so you can see that white is now consolidated, and but Black has taken his portion in the center. Also, he has e5 is played, and now he just has to deal with this pawn right here. So this is Alekhine's next plan, or the next stage in this plan. Bishop e2, c6. All right, there's not really a way for white to really be able to hold his center together here. I mean, if he did like a move like bishop c4, um, excuse me, I could be followed by queen c7. Just kind of trying to exploit the fact that this piece is hanging right here. Let's just say, like, for humor's sake, that he play a move like queen e2. Just to give you an example, then c takes d5 here. Knight takes d5 is forced. Knight takes d5. And let's say if bishop takes d5, queen c1 check. And white would be lost right away. So that would mean e takes d5 would have to be played. Then very strong move b5. Of course, it's all about the activity from black side. Now, why can't this just be captured? Well, bishop takes, you got the same thing with queen c1. And if a takes, you have rook a1 with the same ideas. Therefore, bishop b3 would have to be played and queen c1. And you can see the difficulties in the position. So bishop d1 would have to be played. Queen c3. If king f2, trying to hold on to this pawn right here, then just simply queen d4. King f3. And just simply bishop takes a4. And here, black is almost winning here, right? Just due to the sheer activity of the position. So let's go back. So this is why, Euwe doesn't try to hold on to that to the center here. So black does a good job, and he is very close to equality in this position, right? But the position is definitely murky enough to where either side could slip up here. It's very unbalanced. B takes c6, castles. Little late castle in there, and now rook a d8. It seems more natural to me to play rook f d8. Right, this rook is already over here in the a file, but I'm not sure if this is too bad to play this rook over. Rook a d8, king g2, rook d4, and now white starts marching up the board. C takes b5, a takes b5, and what appears on the board? Pass pawn. Rook b8. And now f takes g6, f takes g6. And what this does, of course, opening the f file, but it creates a problem that black has to worry about, right? Is his king safety now on that side of the board. So he has two problems. One is the pass pawn on b5. How do we stop that? And he always has to keep an eye open for his king. All right. b6. Right, pass pawns must be pushed. Queen b7. And now king h3. Okay, and what this does is it gets the king off the second rank. Right, the second rank is open, so in certain scenarios, this move might prove to be effective. It also gets the king off of this diagonal right here for said reasons, right? Lines that are either open or might be open, so it's a good prophylactic move. Sorry about that. I have a voltometer on. So again, would the engine make that move? Probably not. Right, because the engine will calculate, well, maybe black doesn't have the attacking chances, so maybe the engine might do a move like rook b5, for example, just attacking the e pawn, right? Something like that, or maybe knight b5. Some kind of engine universe. However, practical move is the one that Euwe chooses. Just king h3. Rook d6, and here it looks great, right? It looks like that Alekhine is just gonna pick up this pawn right here. All right, Another idea here is queen d7 here. And queen d7 has the idea of building up on this pawn and trying to exploit the move of king h3. And the idea behind queen d7 here would be h5, for example. Of course, if black can have another move, notice I play queen d7 and then h5. So if black has another move, that's the idea behind h5 and uh, queen d7 rather is to play h5, and then black can actually equalize here if he was able to get that move in. Of course, after queen d7, then white could either just play king h2 here, or the more aggressive move to simply knight to b5 here. Strong move, very strong move um, here. And I'm not gonna go into the further lines with that because this is a sideline. But you could take my word for it and analyze it on your own. White is still in the driver's seat at this point. Going back to the game, however, Alekhine again, he made a natural looking move. Rook d6 pass pawn has to be stopped. He wants to win it. What's wrong with that? Euwe keeps up the initiative here, right? It's almost reversal from game one where Alekhine kept finding moves to keep the initiative going. Here it's Max Euwe's turn, and he plays the move knight d5. So of course, black is not trying to give up the exchange to get that pawn. So that means this knight must be removed. The problem here is that if knight d5 right away, which is what of course Alekhine would like to play, then the king comes under danger here. Remember, I spoke about this open f file. So knight takes d5, e takes d5, and let's just continue on with the idea. Rook takes b6, rook takes b6, rook takes b6, queen to b6, and now queen f7 check. All right, king h8, and then say after rook a1, it doesn't look too bad for black right after say a move like queen b7. However, let's go back. So I showed you the line that basically is based on white not playing the strongest moves. So because you might say, hey, that's not too bad. Why didn't Alekhine go for that? This gives you an insight on how strong Alekhine was. That even though he's not doing too good in this game, the fact that he still saw that he couldn't take here. So knight takes d5. Right? Not e takes d5. That would be the weaker move. But simply bishop c4, exploiting the position of the king. Okay, this explains the move that was actually played in the game, which was, knight d5, king g7. This was what was played, and I'll show you why. Because if Alekhine takes knight takes d5, not e takes d5, but bishop c4, very strong move. Now, if king h8, alright, king h8, bishop d5, attacking the queen. So now, although black has enough pieces to take the pawn, take the pawn, he doesn't have the time because of the attack from the bishop. So queen a6, for example, and now rook fb1. And again, it's the same old story. The f file is proves to be decisive in this particular variation because again, if rook takes, it doesn't matter which rook. White just simply captures twice, and now you can see the problems on the back rank. So again, bishop c4 would have proved fatal. Of course, Alekhine, being a great champion, sees this and he plays king g7. So now he's threatening to capture on d5. But it's white's move. Euwe plays this move rook c2, which has the idea of playing rook here at some point, right? One of the ideas. This actually is a weak move that gives Alekhine drawing chances actually, and I'll show you the stronger move that should have been played and probably decisive. So one line is Queen C3, which attacks this pawn right here. So continuing with the similar idea of knight takes D5, then just simply queen takes E5, bishop F6, queen takes D6, bishop takes B2, and now E takes D5, queen takes B6, queen E7 again. King just is overexposed, and now the D pawn advances. Queen D8, bishop C4, king problems again. King H8, rook B1, and these pins are often deadly in these type of positions. Bishop F6, that doesn't save black. Rook takes B8, bishop takes E7, D takes E7, queen takes B8. You're looking at it like, wait a minute, isn't black winning? Nope. Bishop F7, there's no way to stop this queen. King G7 takes, queen takes, and then white is going to win this endgame. So I know that was a long line, but trust me, Queen C3 is definitely pretty strong here. However, of course, black can make improvements like protecting the pawn, for example. But I just wanted to show you what happens if black goes on with his original idea. So if Queen C3 here, and let's say he protects this pawn with knight D7, all right, then a move like Rook C2 is good because now the knight is doing a good job protecting this pawn here. All right, and you got to remember this knight on D7 would love to capture here, but it can't do two things at once. It's well, it can, but it would be detrimental, right? So it has to go at this pawn. So after knight D7, just simply Rook C2, and then let's say move like King H8, getting off of this pawn so that black can take. So now you would play a move like Rook F7 because the king is no longer here to guard the F7 square, and so now this knight can't move. And let's say after Rook F8, then again white can just penetrate into the position. Let's say Queen takes C8, and black never solves the problem of this pawn here. All right, he would have to go back, and then the saga continues. Right, he can play moves like Bishop B6, double attack here, and let's say after a move like Knight B6, takes, and Bishop D7. Right, so it's a long road, but again, white eventually ends up on top here. Going back in this line again after Queen C3, Knight D7, like I said, is a better defense than just taking. So Knight D7, Rook C2, and instead of this move, King H6, trying to get off the diagonal, black, can just give up the exchange and grab the pawn. But again, does he have enough compensation for the exchange? The answer is no. All right, and then plus white has another pass pawn. All right, so I think we've gone deep enough into that sideline to drive home the point. So let's go back to the game. So Euwe did not play the stronger move here, which was Queen to C3. Another idea too, because Queen C3 was definitely the strongest. The other idea was Rook A2. Why Rook A2 is because we had this idea. I know I analyzed it. That's what I was looking for. So Rook A2 with the idea of simply just playing A7. Again, it's a timing issue, and of course, Knight D5, Rook A7. Queen C7, Rook A7, King H8, Rook F7. Again, it just shows you how annoying that the passed pawn can be. Right? It's very aggravating to have a pawn like that in a position where you're close to capturing it, but you really can't finish the job. And it's funny how Nimzovich refers to it in his book, My System, as a criminal, right? And the pass pawn must be stopped and blockaded, captured, not allowed to move. And he's right about that. This is one of those instances where that pass pawn is it's criminal. It's very shisty. All right. So again, those are the two moves there. Queen c3, rook a2. That would have given definitely white more of an advantage. Instead, Euwe plays rook c2, and now Alekhine says knight d. He goes for it. Knight takes d7. I'm sorry, knight takes d5. As now white doesn't have that idea of rook c7. E takes d5. Now rook takes b6. So there goes the pawn. And here was Euwe's idea. He plays rook c6. All right. And under pressure, here's where Alekhine falters. And he's eager, right? He's been under pressure for so long, and I'm sure a lot of you chess players can attest to this. He's been under pressure for so long that he's just eager to trade off pieces, right? But in doing that, he makes a fatal error. He plays rook takes c6, right? This advances the passed pawn. Again, it creates basically like the same problem again. And he has these two issues. One is the passed pawn. Other is the open f file with this, the exposed king. Those two weaknesses are gonna prove fatal. So what should he have done here? At the rook c6, he should have just been more patient and actually threatened to win the pawn now, because now he has three pieces on c6. So now he's threatening this to capture, win the pawn. This would have forced white to capture in one way or the other. If he plays rook takes b6, then just simply queen takes b6. Queen f7. Okay, there's a check, but it's not mate. King h8, rook a1, for example, and queen c7. All right, because it's up for grabs. You got opposite color bishops. The pieces start getting traded off. I mean, of course, there's enough imbalance in the position where somebody can definitely win, and the edge is with white. But it's better than the continuation. The other idea is instead of rook takes b6, the other idea is rook takes c8. All right, which rook would you capture? Queen takes c8. Again, queen f7 is not mate, and you could play like a similar idea with this idea of maybe coming up to the second rank or something like that. But then black can start going for the queen trade. d6. Let's say rook a5. And you got a game here. All right. White has pressure, but is black losing? No way. So Alekhine misses his chance. Who knows? Maybe he was like tipsy at this point. So, like, who knows? So anyway, at the e takes b6, rook takes b6, rook c6. So here is the decisive moment of the game. So Euwe missed his chance earlier with queen c3, and now Alekhine misses his opportunity and plays rook takes c6, d takes c6, queen e7. All right. Bishop c4. All right. Now, what's the idea behind bishop c4? Do you know? Can you tell? Obviously, there's all type of convergence on f7. But what's the next move? If you were white, what would you play? You're Euwe, and say it's your move again. Say we have some new rules in chess, and you can move twice in a row. What would you do? Okay. Well, the idea is to play queen d5, and with this threat right here. So for example, queen d5, let's say rook f8, rook takes f8, queen takes f8, c7, game over. Going back to this idea again, this is what white would do if he had a couple of moves in a row. This is why after bishop c4, king h6, right? Get the king out of there. Um, so you can see that the game continuation that Alekhine chose afforded um, Euwe a tremendous initiative. Queen h1. So now this is becoming dangerous because now the idea simply is to just move the king, um, for white to move his king off of the h file. So the other idea in the position again is to play rook f7 and then followed by king g2. And there's simply no adequate defense here. So this is what proves the error of Alekhine's trades at c6 there. So for example, if white can move again, king g2 check, king g7 followed by rook f7, and the queen is going to be lost. Even stronger is again if white can move again, he would play rook f7 here, and then there's no the queen again will have to sacrifice itself. If the queen tried to, if the queen tried to preserve its interest somehow, let's just put this move here. Um, the queen tried to preserve itself. There's just simply king g2, right? Check, and then that's mate after bishop h4. Queen takes h4. This is the idea behind fantastic move from Euwe, Queen h1, and explains the next move by Alekhine, Rook b2. So he wants to stop that from happening. However, when you have a dilemma, you can't deal with both threats at the same time, and that's why it's a dilemma. Or in layman's terms, they call it being between a rock and a hard place. Okay, so either Alekhine lets the white king come to g2, leading to disaster, or he lets the rook go to f7, leading to disaster. And that is good chess. When you create dual threats, triple threats, basically the more threats that you can generate in one move, the better. Here, Max Euwe has two threats in one move, and Alekhine is only able to deal with one of them, and that's the king to g2. So rook f7. He plays queen e8. Again, there's really no good moves here at this point. Again, he could play queen c5 as I played in the previous variation. Instead, he played queen e8. I'll show you what happens real quick. I mean, he's lost anyway, but just so you can see, because at least queen c5 like kind of feigns at some type of counter attack, right? He's attacking this bishop. So if queen c5, white could just play bishop d5, right? Just protecting the bishop, protecting the pawn, and basically he can switch it up by playing, for c7. And that's what's great. He can either play for the attack on the king or the promotion of this pawn. So for example, rook c2, c7, and then basically there's again no way to really deal with the this idea. So basically the idea, I know I like pause a little bit. So the idea is that this rook is going to be put in a position where it's overworked. So, and so that the king could be allowed to come out. So for example, if queen b6, right, with the idea of rook takes, then you just play, as soon as the queen leaves the c file, you play that, and it forces, it forces the this continuation. King g2, of course. Basically black is busted. So this is why, um, black will probably be forced to, give up the queen here for the rook, and of course, subsequently is lost. Another idea, like last desperate, attempt, I guess, would be rook c1, right? Just attacking the queen. Okay, and white could just, probably play a move like queen g2. Right, I don't see anything wrong with that. And then let's say if rook e2 here, maybe queen e4. So okay, so I'm kind of thinking off the top of my head. So okay, so instead of at rook c1, just queen e4 right away. All right, it's queen e4 right away, and then let's say, because again the rook cannot leave the c file. I mean the queen cannot leave the c file. So let's stay on the c file and play a move like queen c3 here. So now queen f3, and let's say queen takes f3, then just bishop takes f3. And again, the problem is going to be that this passed pawn, promoting on a light square, is not going to be able to be stopped, and that's going to cause the rook. So to make a long story short, to make a long story shorter than it's already been been long, the dilemma of the weakness of the king and the pass pawn is what sinks Aлекhine's ship right here. Right, he has to choose his poison. Either the king is checkmated or he allows this king to go through. So what happens is rook f7. He never chose the strongest move, queen c5. Instead, he decided to keep an eye on the back rank here. Queen e8, c7, and Alekhine went for rook c2, attacking the bishop, and then just simply queen b7 with these with the promotion in mind here. So again, the idea here is if queen takes b7, I'm sorry, if after queen b7, rook takes c4, right? After all, he has the back rank covered, as it seems. Beautiful tactic here. Can you see it? Give you 5 seconds. Okay, 5 seconds is up. Okay, beautiful tactic here. Rook takes h7 first. King takes h7. c8 queen. And you can see the check right here from this guy. And that is gonna win. That's gonna win the game. So this is why Alekhine was forced to resign. So I know that was a little long. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm gonna post this post a link up for the next game because we're looking at the whole match. So you can follow the back and forth. But so far is after 2 games, it's 2 decisive games, 1 game apiece. So we're gonna be back on the next video. Please support my channel and clicking on the links below. There'll be some books/DVDs related to this particular opening. What do we have here? Grunfeld. And enjoy. I hope to hear from you, your comments, and I'll see you in the next video.